On Tuesday, the 27th of May 2025, King Charles III gave the speech from the throne in the Canadian Parliament, the first time a reigning monarch has done so for nearly half a century, and marked an incredibly significant moment in both contemporary geopolitics as a whole and for the Kanzuk movement, the impact on which we will discuss today. At a time of continuing hostile rhetoric and high tensions between Canada and its southern neighbour, with President Trump and his cronies repeating their threats to annex Canada as the 51st state, a dedicated visit by the King, in the words of the Canadian PM Mark Carney, the ultimate head of state, to enact perhaps his greatest constitutional duty in opening the political heart of the Canadian nation, serves as a powerful display of defiance by a strong sovereign Canada and rebuffs a United States which has significantly betrayed their decades-long friendship. In short, King Charles and Canada have just reminded Trump that a 51st state is off the table. Of course, it wasn't this explicit, with a ceremony laced in classic royal subtlety and formal language, but nonetheless sent the message. Earlier this month, with Canadians becoming so repulsed by the US that they elected a fairly unknown political outsider back into office, said Prime Minister Mark Carney outlined when announcing the visit, quote, "Canada has a steadfast defender in our sovereign, and that the King would open Parliament with a speech from the throne, and that clearly underscores the sovereignty of our country." This effort to distinguish themselves from the United States by utilising the uniqueness of the monarchy in comparison cannot be understated, and of course was likely painful for Trump to watch, given how much he longs for king-like status. But anyway, linking this into the Kanzuk movement is pretty easy really. It follows a continuation of a strategy by Mark Carney to start shifting away from a dependence on any one single country, and particularly the US, for Canada's relationships, shifting out towards the wider world and more specifically Commonwealth and Kanzuk nations as well. The King's speech, during which he spoke in both English and French and dedicated a considerable portion to recognising Indigenous lands and rights as well, was perfectly crafted and respectful of Canada as its own unique independent nation with a special relationship to the Crown, which itself has important duties in protecting these. It also featured a large part, as the state opening of Parliament in the UK also does, covering what the government's goals for the coming parliamentary term are. And in this case, the King read out things like discharging its duty to protect Canadians and their sovereign rights from wherever challenges may come, at home or abroad, and also a crucial line about ramping up funding to rebuild and rearm the Canadian Armed Forces. And a particular line that I picked out that I wanted to highlight for you is this one, quote, "Today, Canada faces another critical moment. Democracy, pluralism, the rule of law, self-determination and freedom are values which Canadians hold dear and ones which the government is determined to protect. The system of open global trade that, while not perfect, has helped to deliver prosperity for Canadians for decades is changing. Canada's relationships with partners are also changing. Canada and the United States have begun defining a new economic and security relationship that was rooted in mutual respect and founded on common interests to deliver transformational benefits for both sovereign nations." And as one commentator said about this exact section of the speech, it was so laced in royal ceremony, subtlety and formal language that the display of sovereignty and solidarity might just escape provoking a full-blown rage from Trump, and that may be the point. This has become a hallmark of British diplomacy with Trump during his second term. Keir Starmer has successfully bedazzled Trump with the royal family to extract concessions on everything from trade and Ukraine. Now Carney is utilising the King in a similarly indirect manner. The intricacies of the Commonwealth and the monarchy are likely entirely lost on Trump. King Charles has been dispatched as a kind of roving diplomat on behalf of the UK and Canada, while managing to remain above the political fray in the eyes of Trump. And I think this idea of a delicate balancing act while also sending a strong message when you look into it is very important, and a very positive move for continuing the Kanzuk movement as well. Any move that brings Canada and the UK, as well as Australia and New Zealand, of course, closer together is a boost. Using the monarchy as a diplomatic tool to do so is very clever and has been all over the news over here in the UK, and I'm sure it has been in Canada as well, with such a significant event for Canadian democracy being undertaken by the monarch for the first time since 1977. And the King even emphasised in this speech that, quote, "The Crown has for so long been a symbol of unity for Canada," adding that it also represents stability and continuity from the past to the present, and that idea of tradition and a common history between the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And while I don't think the monarchy is absolutely necessary for a CANZUK alliance to happen, which of course is mostly based on things like free trade, military and foreign policy alignment, and free movement of people between our countries as well, if we can use the monarchy as a tool to bring our countries ever closer together, then I think that is only a good thing. I've said this in previous videos, while I am a supporter of the monarchy myself, I don't think it's necessary for a CANZUK union, and it shouldn't be entirely based on the monarchy. The CANZUK shouldn't be entirely based on the fact that King Charles is the head of state. It should be a movement that comes from the grassroots, that drives our political leaders to bring us closer together. King Charles is, after all, the head of state of all four nations, among many others, and that can be a useful tool, though, to help bring us together. Just hours after the speech, Mark Carney spoke to reporters, underscoring once again that idea of unity and strength, and elaborated on the message he believed the throne speech conveyed to Canadians who were watching. He said, quote, "I think it's a clear message that we are strong, we are free, and it's time to reinforce those strengths and those freedoms." He said this in an interview with CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. In the same interview, he had pointed remarks about Canada's reliance on the United States and how that was no longer smart or in Canada's best interest. He said, quote, "We are seeing the danger of over-reliance on the United States, economically and also from a security perspective." He added, "We will cooperate where necessary when it's in both of our interests very clearly, but we won't necessarily cooperate," end quote. And that is a significant remark. He wants to move away from over-reliance on the US. Like we've already covered in many previous videos, CANZUK is a perfect opportunity to diversify trade relations and not have to over-rely on any one trading partner. This moment, both the re-election of Mark Carney and the King's speech, in my opinion, can mark a crucial turning point. Canada has the ability to be the country that can drive CANZUK forward, with Carney himself even stating he wants to deepen relationships with the UK, Australia and New Zealand, and we can really seize this moment. So I encourage you all to keep writing or emailing your local representative, your local elected representative, like your MP in the UK. Sign the CANZUK petitions if you haven't already. There's a UK government one, a Canada one, and a one for all four nations on change.org. They'll be linked in the description below, so please do go and sign those. Keep sharing the idea around, educate your friends and family on what CANZUK actually is, get the word out there, and with a big push, we can hopefully get the ball rolling. In the past, Canada's closeness to the United States has provided a huge opportunity for prosperity and friendship, but that relationship has categorically changed. Under a new Prime Minister with a new vision, Canada is now looking overseas for a different set of connections and to shift away from any trading reliance, as I say. CANZUK nations can do the same by establishing a free trade zone between them and protecting themselves from the volatility of global flows. King Charles, welcomed into Canada with such huge crowds, applause and yells of "Thank you for coming, sir," sends a clear message. Canada is not the United States. It will never be part of the United States, and it is a sovereign, independent nation with distinct history, culture, and a solid set of democratic and moral values laid out by its head of state, King Charles. Despite his ongoing cancer treatment, he made the journey over and marked, as I say, a significant turning point. So let's get this done. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. What did you think of the speech? And do you think we can continue in this direction to forge a new future for our four countries? I think so. As always, I'll see you in the next one, and remember,
the true north is indeed strong and free.